Few minute. Fiona, our legal advisor, has to leave the meeting for about 15 minutes. So she's giving her apologies now. So you'll just see a minute and slip away. Good morning, Daryl.
Morning, Chair.
Morning, Daryl. Morning, Simon. You're muted, but doesn't matter. Right, I'm going to start. Good morning, everybody. Welcome to this meeting of the Development Committee. Those who don't know me, I'm Pauline Grove-Jones and I'm the chair. I have four members of the staff with me today. On my left, I have.
Thank you, Chairman. My name is Philip Bryson. I am the Assistant Director of Planning at North Norfolk District Council.
And on my right, I have. No, it's not on the next one. One to the right of it.
Fiona Croxton, legal advisor.
And I also have two members of the Democratic Services who are here to assist us with the technology, etc., and timing of this meeting. I have at the end
Emma Denny, Democratic Services Manager.
And
Linda Yarham, Democratic Services Officer.
Linda will be timing the speakers. Can I ask all of you please to turn off your mobile phones if you have them with you so that we're not interrupted? And could I ask the members of the public, please don't speak to the members of the committee whilst we are in session. And if you are aware of a fire alarm, it's the real thing. Don't panic. We exit via the doors which are indicated, and we ask you to assemble downstairs in front of the building or at the rear. Officers will see you down. Please don't use the lift. And the facilities are available in the foyer. Okay. We do break for coffee if the meeting goes on past a sensible time, but I don't think this will happen. Oh, I better not say that because we know what happens normally. This meeting is being recorded and it's on, what's it called? YouTube. I can never remember the name of the bloody thing. YouTube. Okay, so let's turn to the agenda. Can I have the apologies for absence, please?
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I have apologies for absence from Councillor Adam Varley and Councillor Clive Stockton. There are no substitutes this morning. Thank you.
Thank you. Can I please remind members when you're speaking to put your mics on because these screens block everything. Now you've had the minutes. They are for the 20th of May and the 3rd of June. To approve them, have you looked at them? Can I have a proposer to accept? Right, Councillor Kershaw and Councillor Pearce. Seconder, Councillor Brown and Councillor Fitch-Tillett. Do we all approve? Yeah, thank you. I don't think we have any items of urgent business. Nothing's come through to me.
No items reported, Chairman.
Thank you. The order of the business will stay as extant. Declarations of interest. Has anybody got any declarations of pecuniary interest? No. Okay. Now we are now going to just a moment. I think we have to Have you read, those of you who perhaps haven't come to many meetings, the declarations of interest section, which is provided in your pack, so that you know what you're doing actually? Right, let's go to the business. The first planning application is Blakeney. The planning application number has altered. It's PF/20/1347. Please make a note of that. It's not 1904. And presenting this is Officer Darrell Watson. Darrell, if you'd like to go ahead.
Thank you, Chair. This application is for variation of condition 5, which is a caravan occupancy period restriction of planning permission PF 190768 to permit caravans to be occupied from the 20th of March to the 2nd of January in any one year for holiday occupation at the Grimes caravan site. The site is on the east side of Langham Road, approximately 700 metres to the southwest of the built edge of the village. The site is within the AONB. By way of background, the static caravan site operated on land to the northeast of Galley Hill House from the 1960s, with a site licence granted in 1968 for 4 static caravans and 2 tours from the 21st of March until the 31st of October each year. The licence has subsequently been transferred on 2 occasions since then. The site ceased operations in 2009. In 2019, planning permission PF 19/0768 was granted to relocate the caravan business to a paddock to the southwest. In considering that application, it was accepted that although the site was not operating at that time, the use was lawful given the continuous use for at least 10 years since the 1960s. On the aerial photo on page 2 of the presentation pack, you can see where the caravans were previously sited, with a plan on page 3 showing the approved layout for the relocated site. The 2019 permission includes conditions restricting the use of the caravans on the site to holiday use only, and repeated the original site licence condition limiting the period during which the caravans could be occupied, which is the condition which the current application seeks to vary. There are also conditions relating to a landscaping scheme and external lighting, the details of which have subsequently been approved. And there is also a condition requiring the approval of the design and appearance of the caravan. The appeal referred to in the history related to the refusal of an application to remove condition 3 of the 2019 permission, which restricted caravans on the site to 4 static and 2 tourers. This appeal was allowed such that 6 static caravans can be on the site now. In allowing the appeal, the inspector considered that the proposal would not result in any intensification or overdevelopment of the site or have any discernible effect on the character and appearance of the surrounding landscape, which is within the AMB. Amongst other conditions, the inspector repeated the condition restricting the occupation, the period of occupation to between the 20th of March and the 31st of October in any one year. Turning to the current application, this is to vary condition 5, which relates, as I've said, to the period in which the caravans on the site can be occupied. As first submitted, year-round occupancy was sought. As subsequently amended, it seeks to allow for occupation between the 20th of March and the 2nd of January. This would represent an additional, I make it 9 weeks, not 8 weeks of opening, as stated in the report. The site would therefore remain closed for 11 weeks of the year between the 2nd of January and the 20th of March. There'll be no changes to the approved layout, and no operational development is proposed. The 2 main issues as set out in the report are whether the proposed variation is acceptable in principle and the effect of the variation would have on the character and appearance of the landscape and the AONB. With regard to principle, the condition was imposed to ensure that the caravans were not occupied as permanent residential properties, but remained for holiday use only, and to ensure protection of the sensitive landscape. Policy EC9 states that a seasonal occupancy condition will be attached where the accommodation is not suitable for year-round occupation by nature of its location, design, or proximity to habitat that needs extra protection at certain times of the year. As the report refers to, this needs to be balanced against enabling economic growth, the fact that traditional holiday periods when people go on holiday are being extended, and the Housing Secretary's statement regarding the benefits to the local economy of allowing longer opening season times for caravan and holiday parks. It does, however, refer to a temporary relaxation. Officers considered that the variation would still allow for a closed season of the site in the winter months for 11 weeks and ensure that the caravans remain for holiday purposes only. With regard to the effect on the AONB, the variation would mean the caravans could be occupied during what are quieter, darker months, with concerns raised in consultation responses set out in the report regarding noise, activity and traffic in this period, which could erode the special qualities of the AONB. However, officers consider that with the mitigation provided by existing tree and hedgerow screening, which can be seen in the photos in the presentation, and the approved landscaping scheme, that the use of the site for the additional period proposed would not result in any material harm to the character and appearance of the landscape. There is a condition requiring the roadside hedge to be retained and maintained at a minimum height of 2 metres from ground level. A low-key lighting scheme has previously been approved, although as approval of this application would result in a new planning permission, this could be reviewed, with the approved scheme being the starting point. With regard to the other main issues, there would not be any material harm to highway safety or residential amenity. The recommendation is therefore for approval, subject to conditions as set out on page 11 of the agenda. That's the end of my presentation. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you. I now go to our parish council representative, Mrs. Tew. I'm sorry, I don't know how to pronounce your surname. Is it Tew? Tew. Sit there, please, and you have 3 minutes from the time you start speaking. Do you know how to turn the? No, next one. That's it, you're on. Thank you.
Madam Chairman, I apologise, but where I'm sitting, it's very difficult to hear the presentation. So
Well, you weren't the only one. I found it difficult sitting right here. So,
right, okay. So if I say anything that cuts across, I apologise in advance. But Blakeney Parish Council objects to this application. The application is of no benefit to the area of outstanding natural beauty. It is detrimental to the protection and conservation of the setting and runs counter to the core strategy. To allow this would set a precedent for other caravan parks. Whilst the applicants claim the application would bring additional income to the village, Blakeney Parish Council does not believe that would be of sufficient interest to outweigh our concerns. The intensification of this site is simply not appropriate. Other objections have referred to excessive lighting, which is not fully shielded, and the need for sympathetic landscaping. It is recognised that proposals have been made to mitigate this, but the concern still remains. The landscape officer has said the proposal would have an adverse effect on dark skies. Blakeney Parish Council has recently adopted a dark skies policy, and allowing longer use of this site will introduce light, noise and vehicle movements during the quiet winter months. It will run directly counter to the sense of remoteness, tranquility and wildness, which are part of our dark skies policy. And as the landscape officer has said, intensification of the site is not appropriate in this sensitive location. The landscape officer has also recognised the point made earlier about the possible precedent for similar applications within the area of outstanding natural beauty. The officer's briefing note acknowledges other applications to intensify existing caravan and camping sites by extending opening periods. The special qualities of this area will be eroded if allowed, and it must be recognised that this is a sensitive habitat. In winter, it provides refuge for overwintering migratory birds, which must be afforded great consideration. On the main issues in the officer's report, the proposal is for extended use of caravans by a further 8 weeks or so. The officer has referred to a statement by the Housing Secretary that authorities should consider the benefits to the local economy of temporary relaxation to allow longer opening season times as it recovers from the impact of COVID-19. This is not, though, an application for a temporary relaxation, and Blakeney Parish Council is doubtful there will be economic benefit sufficient to justify the disturbance to a habitat that needs extra protection at certain times of year, and as described in the core strategy. Blakeney Parish Council does not agree with the officer's recommendation. If the application is allowed, though, we hope it will be conditioned to control lighting and that the other conditions proposed by the officer should be accepted. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you, Mrs. Thew. If you'd like to take your seat back again, please. There's no opposing or supporting speaker. We go now to the local member, Councillor Holiday. You have 5 minutes, Councillor.
Thank you. So the proposal is to open this caravan site in Blakeney for an additional 9 weeks in November and December. Currently it's occupied 20th of March to 31st of October. I brought this to the committee due to the impact of winter residency of these caravans on the AONB and its dark skies and the precedent this would set for intensification of nearby caravan and campsites. This is a finely balanced case. There are arguments for in terms of economic benefits to the area, and so I felt it would be appropriate to debate the various points on both sides. One thing I would like to add to what our planner has said is that from the east side, it's about 1.5 miles to the Dark Skies Discovery site at Wiverton Downs, which is very precious, and there hasn't been any discussion of mitigation of any light pollution on that side. And obviously light pollution is one of the big impacts on the AONB that we are worrying about. In November and December, the daylight hours are very short. It's dark for between 14.5 and 16 hours a day. And so there is quite an impact in that. It's an important time for migrating birds, and traffic movements and lights obviously will impact on that. And so obviously the parish council has a view that the additional income brought to the village does not outweigh the risks, but that balance that against what the housing secretary has said and what the some of the businesses may be saying. So that's why I brought it to you, because there's quite a lot of interest in both sides and would like to hear your views. Thank you.
Thank you, Councillor Holiday. I now open up to the floor. I'd like to speak. Councillor Gerard. Did you want to speak as well?
If I could,
I'll go to Gerard first. Yes, Gerard.
thank you, Madam Chair. There's 2 points I'd like to make on this one. First of all, as we all know, this will make a precedent which no other caravan site seems to have. And my other main concern really is the additional traffic, which in my opinion is detrimental to the environment. And I feel there's no need for it.
Thank you, Gerard. Councillor Shaw.
Thank you, Madam Chair. It is finely balanced. I'm speaking now with my portfolio hat on for sustainable growth. As everyone is aware, businesses have suffered dreadfully over the last 15 months. The Minister of State did issue a written ministerial statement to support this sort of extension. And looking at the businesses we've dealt with over the last 15 months, I have to support the officer's recommendation. Thank you. I will propose.
Okay. Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
Thank you, Madam Chairman, and good morning, everybody. I have to remind you all that as a local planning authority, it is our statutory duty to conserve the special qualities of the area of outstanding natural beauty. I have great concern in respect of the impact on our dark skies, particularly during the winter. I will suggest that we do not take any notice of setting a precedent for the timing of this, because I have 2 very large caravan parks within the AONB which are totally shielded, that actually have those times that are currently open all the time, excuse me. but would normally operate from March through to January. So it's not setting a precedent. Precedent is already there. But that's beside the point. I do share concerns as stated by both the parish council and the local members. So I should be voting against this, Madam Chairman.
Sure. Councillor Henry.
Well, thank you, Madam Chairman. Yeah, as I said, very finely balanced. To me, the issue is relating to the recommendation 7 on the external lighting. I think that done correctly, low level lights, downlighters only, to minimise any light disruption could resolve that problem. I would hope that officers can work with the applicant to get a sensible approach there. The other thing, obviously, is that we need to develop further tourism in the area, especially at the present time. And that does mean extending the season. People want holidays outside the main area and all of their times. So I think we have to take that into account as well. How great the economic benefit, I'm not sure, but there will be some. However, I wonder whether we could add to the recommendation that to make this for a period of 2 years only in order to see the outcomes. Officer Roseman to say to that, thank you.
Chairman, the members have a proposition on the table which is as it stands at this moment in time. I think it would be appropriate to vote on the scheme as it stands in front of you now. If that scheme is not supported, various options to amend that motion are available to you. The officers have negotiated at some considerable length to bring this case forward to you today. I can't say, and we can't question the applicant because they're not here today, unfortunately. But my suggestion to you members is vote on what we have in front of us. And if you feel there is an alternative, then officers may be able to work on a deferral of the case, or alternatively, if you have an alternative motion to bring forward after the proposal is heard today in the motion as substantively in front of you, then I would suggest that would be the correct way forward. The reason I suggest this is because an applicant can appeal against any condition that the council impose. They can appeal within 6 months of the grant of any permission. So the effect of a considered 2-year temporary period would unfortunately be something that could be negated without the applicant's agreement. So my suggestion is, Chairman, in short, let's hear it as it stands. I appreciate the sentiment.
Thank you, Officer Anderson. Looks useful.
Thank you. Councillor Pearce.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. I'm coming, obviously, again, having looked at this, we've all heard it's finely balanced. I'm coming on our EN policies. If I look at EN policy 1, 2, 3, we would be not necessarily in breach if we permit, but we will be going against our own statutory guidelines. And then I come down to EC9 holiday and seasonal occupancy conditions, etc. November, December, it's cold, it's wet, it could be frosty, frozen, whatever it's like. We all know the weather is changing. And then I put that all together with the location of the site, which is quite a distance from any, shall we say, civilized occupancy. I'm thinking, you know, it may only be 2 or 3 miles, but it's dark lanes, dark skies, no lights. Conditions for caravans and camping sites are put there for this primary purpose. I therefore find myself in a situation, having studied that I must vote against it. Thank you.
Councillor Lloyd.
Thank you, Madam Chair. As has been said earlier, one of our primary responsibilities is to protect the AONB. Now, the report mentions this incremental spread across the AONB, and I don't think we should be encouraging others to put in further applications, which I believe this, if we approve this today, that will do. And so regardless of the economic impact of 6 caravans, which I kind of struggle to see, and there's no figures in here, about how much that would benefit the local economy or anything. I can't support it as it stands for the protection of the AONB. Thanks.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this before we go to the vote? Yes, Councillor Withington.
Good morning. For me, it's also very balanced, but one of the arguments that has come out for me in this, and I think this is about how this perhaps sets precedents, not in the way that Councillor Fitch-Tillett mentioned, but extending this capacity to stay in a caravan for a longer season would possibly have an impact on releasing homes in terms of second homes, in that people who want to come all through the year will buy a second home, taking our housing stock, rather than just having a static caravan or similar, renting like that. So for me, there's an element there, but I'm not sure that that would have significant enough impact to outweigh the impact on the AONMB. So I'm very torn.
Okay, I think.
Chairman, through you, if I can speak before members vote after the debate. The key issue for me is making sure that the issue of precedence is not the key matter in your mind when you vote here. It's really important for me to say that when members are considering issues that could arise and may be repeated elsewhere, that is what the planning system does. There's no reason why, unfortunately, people can't put in adversarial planning applications. That's the nature of it, particularly with the statements coming out of the MCLG at the moment, MCHLG, I should say. So my point really, members, is this. We will consider each case on its own merits as they come forward. Not every case will be like this. Not every case will be 6 caravans. Not every case will be the 8 to 9 weeks that are proposed here. Not every case will have the same mitigation. It's really important that primarily when you vote today, you've considered all of those issues and you consider them against the policy background. It's been a good debate, but I just needed to make that point, Chairman, about precedence, and it should be, if anything, given very limited weight in your minds when you're voting today. Today is about this case, these proposals, this side, the mitigation that stands in front of you, and how that relates to our policies. Thank you.
Thank you. My parents used to have a chalet on a chalet park site, which was restricted for 10 months occupancy, 2 months closed. And during the winter months, my dear parents would trug up from Essex to Norfolk, and they'd stay in the caravan throughout the winter months. They didn't care, snow, whatever. It was just somewhere else for them to go. So as Officer Rowson has said, the fact that we are possibly going to see a spread for applications from other caravan or chalet park sites to extend the occupancy rate. It's happened where I live, and as Angie has said, it's happened in 2 of her areas. So I think we have to think very carefully about that one. Now, I just have a proposer from Councillor Shaw with no seconder, but I think I can second, can't I? Yes. So I think we'll do that so that we vote on the application as it stands before we get ourselves into trouble. So can I ask for, are we going on recorded vote, Emma? Oh, I'm sorry, Linda. Recorded vote?
Yes, I can take a roll call vote for you.
Right. Would you call out the names?
This is for approval in accordance with the recommendation printed in the report. Councillor Brown. Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett.
Against.
Councillor Grove-Jones. For. Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Holiday.
Against.
Councillor Kershaw,
For.
Councillor Lloyd,
Against.
Councillor Mancini Boyle,
Against.
Councillor Pearce,
Against.
Councillor Stockton and Councillor Varley aren't here, so Councillor Withington and Councillor Yassimi.
For.
So that's 6 in favour and 6 against.
I knew it was going to happen to this. Yeah. I'll give my vote. I'm going to vote for, so this will go through, but we are going to have a little discussion about this problem of the lighting.
Chairman, my commentary today is that I've heard that the matter of lighting is the primary concern here. Some elements of lighting can be mitigated. We can't mitigate the cars going backwards and forwards in the dark. They have to have their lights on. That's it. That will happen. However, we do have a scheme of mitigation that was approved under a previous permission. That is a starting point. We are looking at a different proposal. As you've said, as members and as parish council today, this will extend this use into the darker months of the year. As you've heard from the ward member, the amount of dark skies impact that will be had needs to be considered both to the east and also over the length of time that the lights will be on this site. So that gives us a scope to reconsider the lighting plan that we have previously approved. My suggestion then, members, is that that will be a matter for consideration and that we will negotiate on the points that we've heard from the ward member today, from the parish council and generally in the debate. So that will be a review of the lighting mitigation on this site that we've previously approved under a condition that will be attached to this application. Thank you, Chairman.
Does that meet your approval? As this was one of the situations where we didn't agree. Councillor Brown, I'll let you speak, even though we voted.
Thank you, Madam Chair. I think it's perhaps because we have voted that I feel able to speak at this point on the aspect of light pollution. We are considering our policies on light pollution in the context of the new local plan, which is going through its process and is due to go out to public consultation in September. I've always had a concern that we don't seem able to give sufficient prominence to light pollution. We don't have a supplementary planning document historically. We've seen here in the context of this application that measures on a previous planning application have been identified as being inadequate. So I would hope that we can improve on that. But in comparison to other coastal areas of the country, which have higher status for the control of light pollution, a particular example that springs to mind is in Cornwall. We do not have, for reasons which I'm not quite sure of, the same ability to impose controls on light pollution that areas such as Cornwall have. They fall into a higher category of protection. Because this site is in the AONB, I think it is extremely important that when the officers are putting condition into this application, into the decision notice, that they apply the very highest standards of the control available to them to mitigate the effects of light pollution in this very important area of our landscape. Thank you, Chair.
Thank you, Andrew. I think our officers are well aware of the fact that we live in an extremely special area, North Norfolk, with the AONB, the triple S's, triple SIs, the dark skies, the coastal area, about 80 or 90 miles of coastal area. And there are various ways in which we can control the lighting. We can ask for 1 meter high poles with the dim lighting on the top, and there are ways in which these can be movement censored so that they only come on if somebody approaches. I'm not sure about that particular model, but these things can be looked at. Andrew, you mentioned that Cornwall has stronger legislation. Is this from government that they've been
Yes.
given this?
Yes, I do apologise, Chair. I forget the term for the status that Cornwall has, but it's a level above what we have in effect. I'm sure there are very good reasons for it, but I'm not quite aware of the detail, to be perfectly honest.
Well, perhaps we can hear from Professor Rowson at some time about that one. I've not heard of that one.
Chairman,
before.
effectively, we're looking at dark skies designation under national policy. We have very limited dark skies designation, only an area around High Kelling, to the best of my knowledge, is that. It's certainly something that is prominent in debate in the working party chaired by Councillor Brown. So from my point of view, that for me is an area we need to move forward. We've heard that Blakeney are developing their neighbourhood plan, and the Blakeney plan will clearly have consideration about the dark skies issue. We will be responsive to members' concerns around the development of plan policy in the emerging document. So I think that's the appropriate arena.
Thank you. I've made a note. I will be talking to the Norfolk Coast Partnership in respect to the possibility of providing supplementary planning documents such as we have for coastal management. And I would like to add that North Wrexham is also a parish that has declared the dark skies policy. So I think we need to be looking at this a lot further, and I can take it forward through the AONB core management group.
We've had this before with regard to residential properties as well, which are sited along the coastal path with huge areas of glass. So we need to look at that again. Who was that?
Thank you, Madam Chair. It's just a point of interest. Working on the High Street Action Zone project in North Walsham, we've engaged with some lighting designers who have been commissioned to do studies in London and Monaco. And the technology of lighting is moving on very rapidly. These consultants actually live in North Norfolk and have offered advice to us for free. They are working with colour temperatures of light, which actually work with the ecosystem incredibly well. So I think it's something we can take forward, and we've been offered free advice. So I'll speak to you about that today. Thank you.
Good heavens, we don't often get offered free advice. That's really nice to know. No, thank you. Yes, come on then.
Yes. I just want to add at the end of that, of course, we're all concerned about the light pollution, and I voted as I did today because, yes, each application is on its individual merit. And I'd like to also add that I have every faith in our officers that they will apply what is needed for this particular one.
I think we're going to close up. I'm just going to say one thing. I lived in London, as some of you probably did, and we had no dark skies there. Light pollution was just absolutely, the only time I ever saw dark sky was when I came out towards Norfolk, and I used to breathe sense of relief that we had dark skies at night. I can see the stars and there's greenery. Right. Very interesting discussion about that, showing that we do think very, very carefully about what happened. We now go on to, and thank you, Mrs. Slew, for coming, to Sutton, the TPO 21/0001. And the presentation will be from Officer Case, Simon. You're frozen without, there we are.
Oh,
Good morning.
there you go. Technology is working at last. Thank you, Madam Chairman, members of the committee. This is a TPO that we served in Sutton. It was raised by the owner of Driftwood, who had a large tree on the boundary in her rear garden that she considered was under threat. So we consider it expedient to serve a tree preservation order to protect the amenity of the tree. And we also included a further oak tree in the garden. We had one letter of support and 2 letters of objection, which will be in the report in the appendices. Basically what we do, we highlight the main issues that are appropriate for the preservation order. So the main objections for that, and we've summarised these as: number 1, the tree cannot be seen from a public place and therefore cannot hold amenity. The tree causes shading. The tree causes debris from leaves and pigeon mess. The tree has been badly maintained in the past, and the ownership of the tree is disputed. So in response to these, first of all, the tree can be seen from a public place. When you walk around there's a lot of school children who use this, walk around this area because it's on the main path to the school. And by looking through the houses, you can see the tree. It's not as highly visible of a lot of trees we preserve, but the term amenity is not defined in the Act. And as this committee knows, we have protected trees that cannot be seen from a public place because they have other amenity value. And now it is recognised that trees have more environmental services, such as climate change and biodiversity, which is an amenity for local people. Trees causing shading. Yes, trees do cause shade, but like we always say, the tree was there prior to the house. So we always say that if you are buying a property and there are trees close by, that you should consider the shade prior to purchase, especially if the tree is not in your garden or in a neighbouring garden or on a boundary, there you might not have full control. Debris and leaves and pigeon mess, that's not considered good reason to revoke TPO, and that's the judge's comment. That was a case where a judge said that that should not be considered. The tree has been badly maintained in the past. Yeah, it has had bad work in the past, but the TPO will ensure that proper management for the future going forward, because a TPO does not prevent management to a tree, but it does ensure that any management to the tree is appropriate, and we advise on that. And then finally, the ownership of the tree is disputed. We don't consider ownership when we serve a TPO because ownership changes. If it's a building site, it might be cut up and it might become under many different properties. So we don't consider ownership. What we consider on is the tree, and the TPO is served on the tree. So I'd recommend to members that this TPO is confirmed. Thank you.
Thank you, Simon. I now pass to Officer Rowson. Wants to make a comment here?
Thank you, Chairman. Before you give formal consideration to the application members, I need to raise a point that the chairman mentioned in addressing you at the start of this morning's meeting. Regretfully, an appendix was circulated in the paper agenda that you saw when you were first given the agenda for this meeting. Obviously, you have a revised paper copy of that appendix in front of you today. I understand that the committee clerks have circulated via email on Monday the revised and redacted version. I just need to be very clear when I'm speaking with you today, members. It is that revised and redacted version that you should be considering when you make this decision today. Please give no weight to the previously submitted appendix. Thank you very much, Chairman.
Thank you. I now go to town and parish councils. I don't think we have a representative here. An opposing speaker? And a supporting speaker? Right. Mrs. Middleton, if you'd like to come up, then please. If you could switch your microphone on, it's the second knob in from the right. From the right. Oh, there you are. Emma to the rescue.
Thank you.
You have 3 minutes, Mrs. Middleton, from the time you start speaking.
Good morning, Madam Chairman and committee members. When my father purchased Plot 1, Driftwood, the oak tree T1 was one of a number of mature and well-established trees in and around the garden. They've been estimated to be over 100 years old. I believe oak trees reach a mature height at 20 to 30 years of age and support more life than any other UK native tree. T1 looks after and feeds many forms of wildlife. It is a natural habitat for many species, large and small. It offers shade on hot days, protection from the weather on rainy days, and leaf cover and safety when predators are about. If we take this year, 2001, minus 100 years, T1 and the other trees started growing approximately 1921. T1 was at its mature height 45 years before Laxfield Estate was built, and up to 40 and 60 years respectively after Mr. Wright and his daughter Mrs. Nudd moved into their properties. Number 10 and 12 Laxfield Road also back onto the fence line of Driftwood and Sutton Primary School, where there are other trees similar to T1. Most of which provide leaf cover, a woodland area and nature trail for the children to learn about the natural world. We are constantly being reminded by governments and organisations that we need to think more about biodiversity and combating climate change. Later this year, COP26, a global United Nations summit, will take place to discuss such issues. Sir David Attenborough, Greta Thunberg and Chris Packham have all talked about climate change in recent weeks. Prince Charles has also encouraged us to plant trees for the Queen's Jubilee, along with the Council's pledge to plant 110,000 trees, I believe, before 2023. We should not be chopping down trees or aged oaks, but preserving them for life, our own health benefit, and for future generations of the world. I'd like to thank the committee members for the opportunity to speak, and I hope that you will agree with my thoughts and support my application.
I now go to the local member, who is me. I do know where this tree is, and I've been twice to try and look at it. I've looked at it from Laxfield Road and from Moor Road. And it is, I mean, there are trees all the way along the rear of Laxfield Road, lots of trees in our area. And I am a tree person. Any of you who've been here over the last 10 years will know that whenever a TPO comes up, I support it. And I support this one. it is, as Mrs. Middleton said, oak trees, and Simon had said this prior to this meeting, support a tremendously diverse form of life. So it's unlike conifers, which do not necessarily support a tremendous amount of life, wildlife. Oaks do. Yes, trees drop their leaves. So do, that's deciduous trees, so do coniferous trees. They drop needles and cones, etc. So whatever you do, when you have a tree anywhere near you, you have to expect something to happen come autumn, winter time. And again, as Simon said, if you buy a house with an established tree at the bottom of the garden, in the garden, to the side of the garden, you should be aware of the fact that that tree has probably been there a great deal longer than the house that you're moving into. So therefore, if you go ahead and buy the house with this knowledge, well, I'm sorry, you know, that's really up to you. Don't start moaning about it afterwards. And nearly all the TPOs I've seen going through have been people who've moaned once they bought their house and they don't like the idea that there are trees. I'm not going to say any more because I think I've made it perfectly plain how I feel about this. So I support it. Now I now go to, and I must just say with the last, backtracking a bit, apologies when I said I approve of this, I didn't give you the opportunity to say that the proposer and seconder were going with the approval as stated on the last page of the previous application with the conditions in place. So apologies for that. We got so caught up with the lighting, it disappeared. So I'm now going to the floor. Does anybody wish to speak on this, the TPO? Officer Pearce.
I've changed sides, have I? Thank you very much, Madam Chairman. You called me Officer
Oh, I
Pearce.
beg your pardon, yes, yes, it is a partnership, yes, I'm so sorry. No,
I don't mind.
Councillor.
Thank you. Madam Chairman, members, I'm a bit like you. I do love trees and I love oak trees. They're supposed to be the heart of England. But I think looking at this thing objectively, taking into account your synopsis, you buy the property, the tree is there or trees are there. You don't go around hacking away in a willy-nilly way to cause the tree irreparable damage so that it's taken away. This is one of the things that I think that has happened here. The tree preservation order was put there for a reason. I fully support the tree preservation order. And I think that I would have proposed that we vote with the officers on this. And I think that any remedial work that has to be done to that tree should be charged to the person that's done the damage in the first place. It gets me really annoyed when you do something like that and you take the law, however, local, by law, whatever law, you take it into your own hands to do the damage to this. And I think the council and NDC has acted properly, proportionately and correctly in this manner. So I fully support and propose we vote for it.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this one? TPO? Yes, Councillor Shaw and then Councillor Brown.
I think I'm just to reiterate it.
That's
That's fine. I'm happy
You know, I
with that.
recognise.
It's the sherry.
It's the sherry.
It's caveat emptor, isn't it? You know, you buy a house next to a tree that's been there longer than the house. Trees have leaves, leaves fall off, birds sit in trees. If you don't like trees, don't buy the house. Sorry, I'm absolutely in favour of supporting the biodiversity of the tree preservation order.
Thank you, Councillor Brown.
Thank you, Madam Chair. Yes, I agree with the remarks of previous members. The situation is that the tree predates the property. It's open to buyers to have a survey undertaken and for a surveyor to point out the pitfalls of purchasing a property so close to a mature tree, less obvious in winter with it being deciduous than it is in the summer, but nevertheless I think the principles established, and we as a council are very supportive of our biodiversity, being the first council to declare a climate change emergency in Norfolk, of course. And I thank the officer, Simon Case, for his thorough analysis of the issues and for dealing so comprehensively with each objection. And I noted that there wasn't one objection which really stood up to scrutiny. And for that reason, I will be supporting the officer's recommendation. Thank you, Madam Chair.
Thank you. Anybody else wish to speak on this one? As Simon has said before, trees which seem to be, oh, can I just quickly say this? Trees which seem to be heavy can be crown trimmed, and they can be trimmed efficiently from below, where it is where the sunlight comes through. Obviously you are supposed to use someone who knows what the heck they're doing, not, which often happens, chopping away at these trees willy-nilly. Yes. Sorry, Philip.
Thank you, Chairman, through you. Chairman, I think it's really important to say that we're making a decision today about confirming a tree preservation order. I understand that some of the debaters mentioned concern about works that have taken place previously. We can't impose a charge on anybody who's done this previously. What we can say, as Simon suggested earlier on, is very importantly that any future work to the tree, if you confirm this order, will be subject to suitable arboricultural standards. This tree will be protected. It will have to have consideration under appropriate arboricultural management in the future. And that's the key issue today. We consider that the tree does have significant merit. It is an important tree, and we believe that it should be retained. So it's really important that I ask you to focus when you're making your decision today on the merits of this tree and the benefits of its future management under a preservation order that under our recommendation we are proposing should be confirmed. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. And I think I was talking to Fiona about this earlier. Government legislation covers parks, woodlands, etc., with regard to people removing trees illegally, and they can be fined. But unfortunately, when this came up before the government, and I'm not sure how long ago it was, whether it was within the last 2 years, no, they left out private houses, gardens. So unfortunately, as Officer Rowson has said, we cannot impose financial penalties on people who remove trees willy-nilly from private land. So now we just have to confirm, I don't need a proposer and seconder, but we are going to go through the roll call. If you could just say whether you're for, against, or abstain as per normal. This is to confirm the TPO as stated on your page 15 and 14. Right, thank you, Linda.
Thank you, Madam Chairman. Councillor Brown.
For.
Councillor Fisher.
For.
Councillor Fitch-Tillett. For. Councillor Grove-Jones.
For.
Councillor Heinrich.
For.
Councillor Holiday.
For.
Councillor Kershaw. Councillor Lloyd.
For.
Councillor Mancini-Boyle.
For.
Councillor Pearce.
For.
Councillor Stockton and Councillor Varley are not here. Councillor Withington. And Councillor Yassimi.
For.
That's unanimous.
Thank you, everybody. Thank you, Simon. And thank you. Thank you, Mr. Middleton. I said that was a good decision. Thank you all, everybody. We're all tree hug. Well, look, we've got, how many trees are we going to plant? 110,000. So if anybody's going to start moaning about trees, they better do it now before we start, because we'll be putting them everywhere. More trees the merrier. They oxygenate the land. Oh dear, biodiversity, everything. We now go to Philip, page 31 for the appeals section.
Thank you, Chairman. Page 23 of the agenda, agenda item 9. We talk first about new appeals. You'll see that that is a Tree Works appeal, very topical, members, at High Kelling that has been received, and that is an appeal which will be held through the Planning Inspectorate's fast tracking process. We should be anticipating a decision within 6 to 8 weeks. Watch this space, members. Moving then, members, to inquiries and hearings. You'll see the first of those items in this section is at Ale Merton, and that application, sorry, that appeal will actually be now moving to a written representations appeal. This is an appeal that relates to the erection of a self-built detached dwelling. My understanding, members, is that case officers are writing to appellants as a result of the Holt decision from Gladman that we will talk about very shortly, and we will talk about the 5-year housing land supply and the support for the local diversion from the national methodology for calculating housing need in the district. And that is forming the basis of approaches to appellants and suggestions to appellants that perhaps it is inappropriate to hear at inquiry and hearings following the Gladman decision debate about housing land supply or the national housing methodology. We are hopeful that appellants will hear this message. If they don't, then we will put forward a strong and robust defence of the decisions at the Gladman Appeal Halt, and also be ensuring that the council's position is reinforced by that decision and the progress that's being made by the Planning Policy and Built Heritage Working Party. The second case, change of use of land for stationing of 9 caravans for residential development at Bristol, is still a hearing. Officers have approached this appellant on the basis of the point that I've just raised, Chairman, and we await a final outcome. Members, the next item at Clyde next to sea is the property known as Arcady. This is an enforcement appeal which is to be heard as a hearing. We have returned to the appellant and we have raised a key piece of very recent case law with the appellant that we feel impacts upon the veracity of their case. I raised that point in a meeting with the appellant in the last 2 weeks, and I will be looking for progress and counsel opinion from them on this point before I bring this matter before you as a development committee. We also have a number of local concerns from the landscape officer and concerns expressed at the pre-application stage. I'm expecting that those issues will be considered and either rebutted by the applicant at Arcady, or we may see revised plans. If we see revised plans, then I've undertaken to the ward member, Councillor Holliday, who's sitting with us today, that any revisions to this case will be circulated and considered under a further consultation to interested parties and the parish council. I can't then give a commitment, as I'd hoped, that you would be hearing this case this month as a revised planning application. Clearly, the hearing must wait for the planning application to be determined. So we are experiencing some short delays while the appellant stroke applicant has an opportunity to address the issues being raised by the district council. At Ryborough, we are still waiting for a hearing date on the enforcement appeal by Mr. Buxton and Ms. Simcock at 19 Station Road. This relates to unauthorised works to alterations to a roof to install dormer windows and lift the roof. We still await a hearing date. Thank you, Chairman. Any questions on those inquiries or hearings from members?
Anybody wish to speak on those? No, carry on.
Thank you, Chairman. We have a number of written representation appeals to be heard. Those go through members from page 23 through 24 and on to page 25. There's one point that I would like to raise, members, and then I'll be open to questions on any of the individual appeals, and that is relating to the written representations appealed by Mr. Hancock at High Kelling for the use of land for air rifles and archery use. We were told by the inspectorate that this decision would be arriving within 5 weeks of the inspector's visit. We are now in week 6. I will be asking the inspectorate's case officer politely where this decision is. I have spoken with the appellant. He, as well as our officers here, want to see this decision move forward reasonably quickly, and I will update at the next meeting. Any other questions or comments on those written representation appeals?
Anybody got anything to say about those? We all okay with them? Let's pass on then.
Thank you, Chairman. And then moving to 2 decisions that have been made. We have a decision, as I highlighted earlier, at Beresford Road, Holt, for the Gladman development proposals from the public inquiry heard on the 20th of October. You will have seen press coverage, members, that this appeal was allowed. It's very disappointing. Local opinion, the council defended robustly the case for the appeal to be dismissed. The concerns that were expressed related to a number of significant issues. And the important thing to highlight is that in losing this appeal, that those key points about housing land supply in the district, assessed at in excess of 6 years, we believe we're going to put forward a statement on housing land supply shortly through the planning policy team and through the working party. And then also on the issues relating to the calculation of the district council's housing land supply are very important issues. It enables our local plan to move forward on a pretty firm basis towards examination later in 2022 and submission this year. It also enables this committee, when you're considering applications that state that the council's housing land supply should allow proposals in adversarial locations that are not otherwise supported by your plan policy as existing, or rather aged local plan, that in actual fact those policies still hold weight because we have a housing land supply. What I'm aiming for is a clear statement to be given in any future planning committee reports that raise housing land supply, so you will have commonality within the paragraphs from the officer's commentary, so you will be able to see that this decision, although on its face is a poor decision for the district and its community, is a decision that does have some benefits in terms of the calculation of housing land supply and the development of our local plan. I'm expecting, Chairman, that our case officer, Jeff Lyon, will be preparing a short summary for you to be heard at the next meeting. The second case to report a decision on is again positive, I think, in that at the Bluebird container storage site at Laundry Loke, North Walsham. Nigel, you and I are familiar with this site. The public inquiry has now been withdrawn. We are in a situation where planning permission has been issued and we are now moving forward on the basis of compliance with that planning permission. Really good to report this to you members, positive negotiations between the enforcement team, the development management officers and the site owner, and we now have a negotiated way forward that doesn't require a public inquiry to resolve. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Well, both those applications have been around for a long time. So it's nice to see that, okay, we lost the Holt application appeal, but we got the North Walsham one. With regards to the Holt appeal, we do understand, I think, as you said, we said on Tuesday, Philip, that Norfolk County Council are at this stage thought to be actively looking to develop the the primary, I think it's primary school on the site, which was one of the reasons that we were very wary about this previously, because we didn't know that they would be carrying this forward. At Sprouston, where they are developing up to 10,000 houses in the future, NCC are actively building a new school there with under the same situation as was proposed with the Gladman site. So they do seem to be taking this forward. There are affordable housing on this Gladman site, which there weren't before. So we have moved forward a bit, and the application for, are they called fees? Philip? I'm not too sure what they are.
There was two
Costs.
decisions, Chairman. The cost decision was clear in its rebuttal of the Gladman case in terms of costs being levied against the council for unreasonable behaviour. The inspector found that the council's behaviour was in fact not unreasonable, and actually found in the council's favour on the matter of housing land supply, and found that the council's case was otherwise reasonable and no costs were awarded. Thank you, Chairman.
Thank you. Well, that's a blessing. Now we go back to the agenda. No other urgent business that I have to bring forward. No need to exclude press and public. No private business to consider, exempt business or exempt matters. So I close this meeting at, my goodness me, 10:42, I think.